What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood Show. I'm your host, Mangone. I'm here with Hoop. I'm here with DC. We are breaking down the nice little 3-game NBA slate. Hoop, how's it going over there? How are you doing after a nice little NFL showdown win last night?
Yeah, nice little showdown win. Double kickers. I mean, it is pretty wild. It has happened quite a bit this year and the past years as well. These double kicker teams end up getting the job done, and it was a late push from the kickers. Really, Boswell hit a couple 50-yarders, and the other dude was knocking him. And I didn't realize he's been. I think he's made like 30-some field goals in a row. Santos. So. Worked out well. Got a nice little win, and looking forward to this 3-game slate. It is, a little bit different. Last year we didn't have many of these 3-game slates with the condensed schedule. We had a lot of 4, 5, 6-game slates. Not as many 3. Get 2 of them this week, but there's money to still be made despite the small number of games involved in the slate. So looking forward to breaking it down for sure.
Yeah, Hoop, I mean, if you can win a 1-game slate, you can obviously win a 3-game slate. Nice and
All right.
small.
Yeah.
You can take that down. Should be a lot of fun. Excited to break this thing down. And I'll just say this now, Hoop, right? Let's say it quick. Get those likes and subscribes in now, because listen, if we don't got the likes early on, we talked about it. We said we'll just pull right out real quick. We'll say we're out of here. People will not be happy about that. And we had people in the chat saying, "Oh, you guys always give out the plays." Put those likes in now, Hooper. We're going to be out of here real quick.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of called us out last time. So, I mean, when we throw out a number, I mean, we basically just have to stick to it now. I mean, we can't risk being embarrassed by backing down. So whatever number we throw out, it's going to be a firm number. That's for sure.
Yeah, DC, you're not someone to back down. You get up every morning, you run like 10 miles. We're not backing down today. We're bringing the winners. How is it going over there with you? Are you excited to break down this NBA slate?
I am, yeah. Things are good. I have to say, I've been my tongue to this point, but taking down a showdown, NFL showdown slate with 2 kickers, that's a rich parents only takedown right there. Listen, you can't afford to be playing 2 kicker lineups if you're not, funded by your parents like Hoop. So I let it go until this point, Hoop. But this is the last straw for me. 2 kicker lineups, you just have every single combination covered. Just easy money, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing I took away from last night. I mean, I couldn't have done it without the parents' bankroll. I mean, you're definitely not playing 2 kickers if you don't have the financial backing of your parents, right?
I'll say this, Hoop. I played 1 lineup yesterday. I played 2 kickers. I did not profit, so I don't know. Maybe I need to get some rich parents, to be able to go.
You must have been on Deontay, right? He's like the.
Well, yes, I had Deontay on the team, but I also had I had Najee in the captain, so like that combination wasn't enough. The team, I don't mind what I did. I thought the double kicker route was super sharp, though. The more I looked at the slate, like this is a pretty good route to go. So I was happy about that, but didn't get it home. But happy you got it home. We got a nice Thursday night game with the Ravens and the Dolphins for Showdown. So that'll be a lot of fun. We have all the content over here at Run Pure Sports. Again, use that code RPSHeater25. Get you 25% off your first payment. Hoop, this is a great time also to keep saying we got all the sports going on, right? I mean, we got college basketball starts tonight. We have college football, and it is the start of college basketball. Does that mean there's going to be a college basketball pricing package coming out, Hoop? How's that work?
Oh, you know the bit. You know how it goes. All sports, one price. It's best time to get in. And speaking of college basketball, we have the best guy in the industry covering college basketball, Stevie Boyton, has already done breakdowns of the major conferences. We'll have playbook, core plays, everything for all the main slates. I mean, a phenomenal product. I know the members last year absolutely printed from college basketball. And like Stevie said today in the chat, he's like, it's not the biggest prize pool. So, I mean, if you're someone that wants to be playing for, $200,000, $500,000 on any given slate, that's not what, this is all about. This is a grind. You grind it out every day. You can still win some big prizes, but you're going to get the advice from, honestly, the best guy in the industry. He knows the ins and outs of college basketball. So that's part of the product here. All sports, one price, like we always talk about. We're not going to hit you up when these new seasons kick off and ask for more money. And right now is a great time to get in with all these sports going on. And as we've kind of been teasing this week, we've got a pretty big announcement coming up later this week, early next week, where you're going to want to be a member of Run Pure Sports to take advantage of this offer that we're going to have.
Yep, we got all the sports one price, and yeah, definitely got a nice little tease there by Hoop. So be sure to check that out in the coming weeks. DC, I have another question for you. So you're a Denver guy. We had Jokic last night, fighting Mr. Morris. So here's my question to you. You got to pick a duo, a guard and a center to basically fight tag team style. Who's your guys? Who do you want? Do you want Nurkic? You want Steven Adams? And I think Marcus Smart's the guard I want. Do you want a Patrick Beverly out there fighting? Who's the guard center combo that you want to fight any other NBA guard center combo in the league?
It's a 2-on-2, a guard in the center versus a guard in the center.
Yeah. It's kind of like a tag team, WWE style.
Okay. And they don't need to be on the same team or anything?
No, they don't have to be on the same team. You can pick any guard or center in the league.
This is a good one. I'm taking my boy Valanciunas as my center. I'll go to battle with Valanciunas, especially if there's like swords and shields involved. I feel like he could be a natural Game of Thrones type fighter. Guard, yeah, Marcus Smart is a good one there. I won't steal yours. Man,
this is a tough on the spot question. I got a good one, DC.
It is. Yeah, give me a second.
I just came up with a good one. And I don't know. I guess he's more of a forward, but James Johnson has to be the favorite, right? I mean,
James Johnson's a good one. Hoop. James Johnson's the black.
Yeah, he's like a black belt karate guy, and who he got into it with someone a couple years ago, and he looked at this dude and just like, I'm gonna fucking kill you type look, and it was over at that point. So James Johnson has to be up there.
Yeah, James Johnson's definitely there. Mine is Nurkic, because I don't know if you guys know the story about Nurkic. The reason why Nurkic is in the NBA is his dad was a cop, and he like beat up like 14 dudes at once, and then they like looked into it, and they're like, oh, this guy's got like a son that's a huge dude, and then he started playing basketball, and like it was just amazing. So I got Nurkic because Nurkic's dad is a giant, and Nurkic is a giant, and I got Marcus Smart for sure. That's my guard.
Steven Adams is a good call though too. He just looks like someone that would just destroy you.
Also, I think like Giannis, maybe he doesn't qualify because he's not officially a center, but I would love to see Giannis fight in the UFC. Just like seven, he could cut down to 265. He's like 7'1" with the longest reach of all time. Just imagine what he could do to some of those guys that you see fighting at 265 in the UFC if he was trained for it. So yeah, good question. And my guard is going to be Chris Paul. You're not where you're typically going with, but a crafty fighter. He's going to have a good plan, and he's known for some cheap nut shots here and there. So I'll go with CP3.
Yeah, you might
get the injury risk though. He might not. He better get the kill quick though, because he's getting hurt.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Actually,
what about Draymond? Draymond's got to be up there too. I wouldn't want to mess with Draymond.
Oh yeah, Draymond would be a good one for sure.
I can see that.
Someone said, "Why Marcus Smart?"
Good question though, man. Good question.
Yeah, someone said, why Marcus Smart? Dude, Marcus Smart, he's a fighter, man. I mean, he fought dudes in the stands in college. I mean, that dude's going to get after it. Don't worry. But yeah, it was a fun question to ask. But let's dive in. We'll talk some NBA hoops, and we'll dive into the first game. And if we're going to talk Bucks and we're going to talk Sixers, we'll go to hoop first because we got a lot of chalk here, right? And we got your boy Andre Drummond with the most interesting price tag, 7.7K on DK, 7.2K on FanDuel. Let's start there, Hoop. How are you handling the Sixers and all this value with Curry questionable and Andre Drummond's increased price tag?
Yeah, I mean, could end up with more appealing options, which is crazy because this team's already decimated. No Embiid, no Tobias. If Curry's out, it opens up even more. I mean, Andre Drummond, it's a 3-game slate. He's been playing phenomenal with Embiid out. I think you just play him again. I mean, the price has not corrected enough. He's smashed back-to-back times without Embiid. Think he does it here again tonight. He'll be popular. I don't care. I'm just plugging him in, moving on. In terms of the rest of the 76ers, does kind of depend on what happens with Seth Curry. I mean, I think Korkmaz is a fine play regardless. I think Maxey is a fine play regardless. I mean, I think you can play Danny Green as a salary saver. But if Curry's out, then I think Shake Milton becomes a phenomenal play. He has to be the one that benefits the most from that situation. The one thing, though, to keep in mind, I know someone had posted in our Discord that Doc Rivers made weird comments about making sure he plays like 10 guys a bunch. So there is some risk with this situation, but it's a 3-game slate, and we can't really be all that picky. So going to have to play some of these 76ers. It clearly starts with Drummond, Korkmaz, Maxey all in play. And then if Curry's out, Danny Green, Shake Milton, I think become solid plays. as well. On the Bucks side, they have a situation, obviously, no Middleton, no DiVincenzo, no Brook Lopez. Giannis is, the clear top play on the slate. After him, Bobby Portis. They inserted Bobby Portis into the starting lineup, and the results have been very good. I guess it was just the last game, but 45 fantasy points. If Bobby Portis is going to play 30 minutes, Bobby Portis has a price tag that is just way, way too cheap. Drew Holiday coming back from the injury still has a cheap price tag at 6.4K. George Hill, 3.6K. It is wild, though. You start looking at this. This game is going to soak up almost all the ownership on the slate. You start building teams, and it's hard not to have like 5 or 6 guys from this game. So this game is going to be very, very popular. If you're a tournament player, maybe play the blowout here. I mean, it's a 3-game slate. Maybe you get the blowout. These other games, Hawks, Jazz especially going to be very low on. Trailblazers, Clippers is going to be pretty low on too. I mean, it is wild when you start looking at ownership and whatnot. All the ownership is coming from this Bucks 76ers game. In cash games, I mean, I think you definitely just eat it and play these guys. In tournaments, there might be some game theory going a little bit late. Definitely don't fade it, but if you only play 2 or 3 pieces, you're going to be way below what the field's doing here.
Yeah, definitely a game you do not want to fade in. It's only a 3-game slate, but you definitely want to get exposure. DC, I'll go to you and ask you the question on how many Sixers are too many Sixers, right? Is it 3? Is it 4 or 5? What do you do with all these guys? Because this is a good game, and we got Curry as questionable. And if he doesn't play, man, I think Shake Milton then starts, and it's going to open it up for even more opportunities for these Sixers players.
Yeah, I mean, this was we spent half the show yesterday on an 8-game slate talking about the Sixers situation. Now we got a 3-game slate. It's the same thing. I mean, I built a couple lineups. A lot of them have 7 players from this game and then 1 player from the last 2 games. So you're saying, how many Sixers is too many, especially if Curry's out? I mean, you could easily go, for sure 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, I think is possible. They played an 8-man rotation each of the last 2 games. Now you maybe take Curry out of there, right? He played 40 minutes. Seems like they're giving the night off just because they kind of feel like they have to. I don't know. Danny Green, I mean, he's coming off a hamstring injury. How many minutes can he play in a back-to-back situation? I'm sure that's a concern. Even Andre Drummond, at least now, man, we have a decision to make, right? These last 2 games that he started when he was 4,400 and then 5,700, something like that. It was just, you're playing him, you just play him he was 80% owned in like the big flagship 15. Now at least you have to make the decision. 7,700 coming off a 38-minute game. It's a back-to-back. It's Milwaukee, right? Who it's not the best matchup for opposing bigs. So I still lean playing him with hoops. Certainly cash games I would go there, but at least there's a path, right? He could get in foul trouble. At 7,700, he kind of needs the full minutes probably to ultimately get there. So, if you're fading him, I think a guy like Paul Reed is interesting at 3,300, probably going to play those minutes if something happened to Drummond, right? Whether that's foul trouble, injury, blowout, whatever. So I think Paul Reed's an interesting pivot there. And then, Maxey, Milton, Niang, Korkmaz, I think all those guys, pretty strong plays as well.
Yeah, I think if Curry's out, my 2 favorites besides Drummond would be Shake and Korkmaz. That's kind of my lean right now. DC, what about the Bucks? I talked to a spread on the bet show before. If you haven't, check out Run Pure Bets. We got a YouTube channel for that and go subscribe there. I talked about Korkmaz, talked about some of these other guys with the Bucks. I don't know what to do with like Grayson Allen, George Hill. I think they're just like cross-offs. That's kind of my thought. He was like, hey, could we play these value plays? And I was like, I just think you cross them off on this slate. Now you can't cross off Giannis. He's an absolute great play. Raw points. You need to kind of have some raw points on these kind of slates. There's obviously other guys on this slate that we'll get to that are studs that you can pay for. But is Giannis another guy you're just kind of getting preloaded in your lineups just to capture all those raw points?
Yeah, I think so. Against a really, really depleted Sixers team that's on a back-to-back, that they don't have anybody that can guard Giannis. I assume they're going to try Danny Green on him. That's who they put on Julius Randle, but that didn't work super well. Most players are and teams are against Giannis, but especially the 76ers team. I have a hard time seeing Giannis just completely destroy this team, right? Just doing whatever he wants all game long. I expect 60 plus fantasy points tonight out of Giannis. So yeah, he's a guy that you got to prioritize, in my opinion, to get into your lineup. With the return of Jrue Holiday, he's kind of the other guy I want at this point. So they've kind of eased him back in these last 2 games. But if you look at some of his usage stuff, drives to the basket, how much he had the ball, I think he's healthy after 2 games back, after missing I think he missed 5 or 6 games with that ankle injury. But now I think he's good to go. So 6,400 for Jrue Holiday, I think is a good play. And now that they got kind of 2 of their big 3, I'm kind of off of guys like George Hill, Grayson Allen, Connaughton. But I do like Portis, assuming he starts here. I think he will. 5,400 for Portis. He's just a great fantasy player. He always has been, and I would expect him to kind of get there easily. So yeah, the Bucks kind of have their own big 3, at least in my eyes, of Giannis, Jrue Holiday, and Portis, which is nice when you're planning to play 3 or 4 76ers, right? It's like, okay, that's an easy run back for me, and you just hope the game goes well. I mean, that's my approach to it tonight anyway.
All right, Hoop, let me go to you. What are you doing with Giannis, and what are you doing with Bobby Portis? I think he was a great one that DC brought up, and I think you can make a case if, let's say you fade Giannis. I'm not saying you should, but if you fade him, I think I'd fade it for Bobby Portis because he feels like the guy that if Giannis fails, it probably blew out, or Bobby Portis just ate on the boards and Giannis just kind of sat back and relaxed a little bit. That's my thought process. Yeah. If I was fading Giannis, Hoop, I think Bobby Portis is the leverage or the guy that I would go to. And I think you could play both together. It's certainly fine. And then Jrue Holiday is obviously there who could have a big
for sure you can. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, both just to me, very tough to avoid. I mean, especially if Portis starts. I mean, if he comes off the bench, I mean, there's some rest him only playing 24, 25 minutes. If he starts, he played 31 minutes last game. And Bobby Portis playing 31 minutes on this somewhat depleted team right now. No Middleton, no Brook Lopez, no DiVincenzo. It's just way, way too cheap. I mean, just a really, really strong play, tough to avoid. Giannis obviously is the best spend on the slate. Jrue Holiday, he's not going to be 6.4K for long. I mean, he's going to get back into the swing of things here. And then I don't mind playing even George Hill. I mean, it's 3.6K. He'll play decent. And we're talking about a 3-game slate here. On a full slate, you're crossing off George Hill. On a 3-game slate, probably have to consider him a little bit when there's just not a ton of value. Maybe we get some in Atlanta. We have a couple of questionable pieces. DeAndre Hunter, Bogdanovic, both questionable. But the way this slate's set up, this first game is at 7:30 Eastern, which is an hour and a half before that Hawks Jazz game, so we might not get the news. So it's a challenging slate in terms of that, not getting this news and then trying to find some value. But I mean, this game is all the ownership's going to be in this game. There's just no way around it when you start looking at things.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a game that you want to load up on. You want to get exposure to. If you full on fade this game, listen, you will be very different. I don't think that's a smart idea though on this slate. I will just say that right now. Do not backload. I think get at least a piece of this game.
Well, I think it's impossible to fully fade it, but if you're going to play the blowout and only play 2 or 3 pieces, you're going to be way under the field. That's to me, fading this game is only playing 2 or 3 pieces. You have to have some exposure here. Don't full fade it. If you have the mindset of wanting to fade it, just play 2 or 3 pieces.
Yeah. So one way you could go with the Sixers side is play the bench unit. You know who it is. If it's the same starting lineup as yesterday, that's going to be Shake Milton, Niang, and Paul Reed. Those are the 3 guys that came off the bench. Maybe Milwaukee gets out to a super fast start. Those guys, bring it back in some way, get some extra playing time. Maybe that's a blowout at the end. They get extra playing time because the nice thing about the 76ers right now is they don't have really anybody to steal your garbage time run if it does eventually get there, if you have the bench players for that. A couple things. Portis's minutes, he's back in the starting lineup, but he's been back for 5 games now. They've gone up each and every game, 15, 19, 22, 24, and then 31 last game. He was coming off a hamstring injury, so clearly, they're ramping him up. You got to assume he's good to go. I think Jrue Holiday is now just fully healthy, good to go from the ankle. And then just a question for you 2 guys. Who would you rather fade, Giannis or Drummond? To me, I feel more comfortable fading Drummond than Giannis on this slate, but Hoop, sounds like maybe you disagree.
It's tough. I mean, I have been playing a lot of Paul George, and it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
I
he's been
think
awesome.
Paul George is the pivot off of Giannis.
Right.
Drummond in this mid 7 range. I don't know if I can see like a direct pivot. So actually, I'd probably
Okay.
rather fade Giannis for that reason. Like I have trouble finding a direct pivot off a guy like Drummond. Maybe it's CJ McCollum in that later game, but I think they both have a good chunk of ownership because of McCollum's price tag. So I guess I'd probably say Giannis.
Yeah.
And Giannis is a guy in the blowouts where we've seen some, middling performances. Like if they win by 30 here, there's a chance that Giannis only gets like 40 fantasy points, which is kind of what you're hoping for. So I probably honestly would prefer to fade
Yeah.
Giannis.
I, I would say if Giannis busts because of blowout, I think Drummond's going to bust too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that means the
Yeah.
76ers are getting blown out. And then he's missing his last rotation for sure too. So I would expect
Yeah.
Drummond to, which when you okay, so now you think about that, maybe make some lineups you're making them all where you fade both of them, right? Because they both could go down in flames together if it gets really out of hand early, which is
Yeah.
certainly possible. I mean, it's just a tough spot for the 76ers tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the number, I mean, the percentage of lineups tonight that'll have Yana, and I'm not saying this is a move. Like you guys know me, if I'm playing a bunch of lineups, I'm going to have a ton of these combos. But
Yeah,
the percentage
same.
of lineups tonight that have Giannis and Andre Drummond together is going to be like massive. Like I'm not good at analyzing all that stuff, man. Go, maybe you are, but it's a big number. The number of lineups that have Giannis and Andre Drummond
I mean, we're
together.
talking what 75% Drummond at least, and 50+% Giannis. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're talking like 40% of total lineups will have both,
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
both together.
Yeah, a lot will have both. And if you
Yeah,
really wanted to, like, let's say you're doing 150, you want to be unique. If you just kept them both away from each other, like that would be just like a simple way you made yourself pretty unique. But
I
the
think so.
back to the point that you guys were saying, who would I rather fade? I would fade Giannis over Drummond. And the reason why is I think forward has a lot of guys that you can go to. I think Bobby Portis is a really good leverage one that you can put in there. Also, I think part of me wanting to fade Giannis over Drummond there is what I would do is if I did fade Giannis, I would go Paul George is a good pivot, like Hoop said, or I would just go up to these guards and I would just like spend for two guards where it's really difficult to fit those two guards and Giannis. Let's say you played Donovan Mitchell at point guard and you played Trae Young or even like a CJ McCollum. If you played both those guys with Drummond, it's not going to work. It's just you're not going to be able to get Giannis in there as well. And you also have the out of yes, Giannis he could have a good game and get 55 fantasy points, but if your other guards smash or maybe your value forwards close the gap from Giannis and the other value guards don't do well, that's another out and it gives you another possibility to kind of get there. So that's some game theory there. DC, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think on a 3-game slate, it becomes even more critical to just kind of think about how this slate could go, right? And try to build lineups that, if this game's a blowout and these two are close, could this game contend? If I'm fading all the Philadelphia starters, maybe I need 2 or 3 guys off the bench and hope that they get the minutes. You got to kind of consider every scenario. Whereas you get a 8, 10, 12 game slate, like there's just too many scenarios to consider. You can't really just build teams like that, kind of predicting each game and because you're leaving off many games from your lineup altogether anyway. Whereas you get down to 3, 2, and then, Showdown is, you could argue, kind of the most game theory of all, right? Where you're going to go. But the fewer options there are, the more you have to kind of try to think through it and say, how could this team get to the top of a GPP, and try to build your lineups that way as best you can.
All right, we can move on to the next game. But before we do that, want to mention a couple things. Want to mention the Members Never Win segment. All you got to do is, go into the Members Never Win channel in the Discord, post your screenshot. We'll start it off with not a member, a coordinator. We'll start off with Hoop with a nice little MMA win for 18K. He also had a nice little win in NFL last night that we talked about before. And then we got Big T, college football, won 18K this weekend. Congrats to him. But some of the members that won, I mean, Slick Derulo won 25K in NBA, Mike J 32 won 118K. We had an NHL win for 16K from another guy named Mike. Cannot pronounce that last name and will not try. I'm sure you can see the screenshot there that the producer was putting up. And then Matt S had a nice little 30K NFL Showdown win. And Hoop, this is the guy, Mike H. He is the guy that lives near you that won the showdown with the backup quarterback. He won $500K in NFL Showdown about a week or two ago. Hoop, what'd you think of that win? And tell a little backstory about that one.
Yeah, as a friend of a friend. I didn't realize it until a couple days later. He sent me a message and he's like, "Yeah, that was my buddy who lives real close to us that won that showdown slate using the Run Pure content." And he just made a pivot on some of his teams and just played the backup quarterback. That was the Jets night with Mike White when he went out. And who's the backup? What's his name? I can't think
Johnson,
of it.
right?
Yeah, Johnson. Johnson came in and kind of crushed for him. And I asked, a lot of times you hear the story with the backup quarterback who was, accidental that they put him in there. No, it was part of his game plan. And, we used to make fun of everyone for doing that. But I mean, man, it's won multiple times. And when you win, you're going to solo ship. I mean, if you have all the right pieces and the backup quarterback, you're going to win and you're going to win. You're not going to min cash. You're going to win the top prize. And it's happened multiple times. I'm not going to be a core play on the website or anything, but I don't know. I'm starting to change my tune a little bit.
I've changed my tune. Just if you just think about the math, like, okay, way less than 1% of the teams in the showdown contest have a backup quarterback in their lineup.
Yeah.
The two quarterbacks combined have a way, way better chance of getting knocked out fairly early in the game than 1% chance. And then you throw in the fact that all the money's up top and you have a good chance to solo ship if that scenario comes to pass. If you do that math, it's a good play. I really think it is. Of course, you're very likely to lose that $15 or whatever it is in each individual lineup, but it's a long-term play and you hit once and there you go.
I mean, you're talking about the most physical sport, on the planet, basically. NFL injuries happen all the time. And like you said, you get these quarterbacks that have virtually no ownership whatsoever. And the odds of the quarterback actually getting hurt far outweigh the ownership on these backup guys. Yeah. And it's very interesting. Like I said, I've definitely changed my tune a little bit on it. I know BigT was battling on Twitter with people in regards to it. But I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to go out there on Thursday and build a bunch of, backup Baltimore QB teams. Like, no, but okay. You're talking about the Jets who continue to run through multiple quarterbacks and got the chance of a guy getting benched as well. I mean, I don't know. I think there's some validity to it.
Well, Hope, listen, you got to have rich parents to do this on Thursday, but Jacoby Brissett, I looked ahead. I was just joking around. I came up with a funny tweet for Thursday with a team that I made. Jacoby Brissett is 9.8K as the backup and Tua is 10.2. So you better have some rich parents to play a 9.8K.
Yeah, you're playing backup there. You got to have some super rich parents.
So,
we'll leave that one to Siege. He invented the backup quarterback.
God, it is so wild. But when he talked, it was in like a different. Wasn't it like?
Oh no, his thing was. I think his thing was that he had was so invested in the starting quarterback in like his normal teams that he wanted to play some backups as like a hedge or something, which is well, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, the move would have been. I remember. I think it was Kirk Cousins. The move would have been just load up on Dalvin Cook, right? Just in case it's like a handed off game. But I understood. But it was a funny thing, and hey, it has worked. But
we're just to clarify, we're not giving Siege any credit for this. Just before we move on.
Yeah, unless he decides to box you, then we will, right, DC? That's the only.
Yeah, that time has passed, unfortunately.
I think so.
I let people off the hook on that too, because I had the winning horse in that fight. I had a decent chunk of change on that too. I just had to let everyone off the hook.
It's a shame. Hoop always on the sharp side.
That was gonna be one of the greatest days of my life. The day I got to fight Siege. I wish it would have happened.
That would have been I mean, I literally somehow I somehow had over like 5 figures on DC, and I felt so good about it. And then what was it? Scar tissue?
Yeah. Well,
it
was like we kind of had it all agreed upon. It seemed like I thought there was a relatively high chance. I was always going to go through with it. And then I posted a picture of him with boxing, with like bags there, and I think he saw that. He's like, "Fuck, he's actually gonna do something for this."
Oh man,
Too good.
Would've been fun.
I want to talk about one more thing in the chat. We got RPS Goat's got to calm down a little bit. So he's hearing about Allie. When's Allie going to be here? I know that I might not be or as a host right now, but why don't you tell the people about our new hire, the new person?
Keep it in your pants, buddy. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, you're going to see Allie. Allie is going to be a part of our product moving forward. She will have her own videos that she posts on social media. Actually, one just came out, I think, right before the show started. So head to Run Pure Sports Twitter account, and you can see that video, a free winner for tonight. She's going to be doing some DFS shows as well. She will be on calm down, buckle up your pants a little bit. She'll be on the Run Pure Sports free YouTube channel. Give it some time. We're easing into this process. It's going to happen. Just be patient with us. Keep the pants on. It'll all be good.
Yeah, listen, I won't be here tomorrow hosting. I think Title will. Then I'll be here Thursday. It's not just going to happen overnight. So don't worry, relax, stay with us. It'll be fine. But Hoop, let's dive into the next game. Which, man, if we were playing a 10-game slate, if we were playing a 6-game slate, Hoop, we would not be playing the Jazz and Hawks, but this is where we're at, right? We are here. We are playing Jazz and Hawks tonight, or at least we're considering it with some of the news. And I see you're laughing because the chat is going nuts. We're talking Fun Pure Sports women's merchandise. There's a lot.
It's either the best thing or the worst thing. Time will tell.
Oh man. We will have to see what happens. But Hoop, talk Jazz, talk the Hawks. Man, this is a rough game. We do have some news. We're waiting on Hunter. We're waiting on Bogdanovic, and that's the Hawks Bogdanovic. So that's going to be important news to monitor. How are you handling this game in Utah?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a 3-game slate, and we have this game here where it's 2 teams. Talk about it every time, and like I said, I'd hate to be repetitive, but when they're at full strength, it's 2 teams that are just not great for DFS purposes, and we know for sure the Jazz are going to be at full strength. I mean, they have all their main guys. The risk when you play Jazz guys. Jordan Clarkson off the bench gets hot. It's going to take away from guys like Conley, Mitchell, Bogdanovic. Joe Ingles can get a nice little groove knocking down threes. It's just a lot of guys that need the ball, and they're all priced pretty appropriately. I mean, Gobert's 8-9, Mitchell's 9-1, Conley's up there at 6-6. He's been playing pretty well. It's a stay away spot for me, even on a 3-game slate. In tournaments, if you're MMEing and you're playing 150, you probably have to play some of these guys. I get it. I'm not playing 150 tonight, so I won't really have any Jazz players. On the Hawks, it's another team that when they're at full strength, stay away for DFS. Tonight, they might not be at full strength. We have DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovic, both questionable. This game starts at 9 o'clock Eastern. So what makes it tough is we have this very chalky, high ownership type game in the Bucks and 76ers that start an hour before this. So are you going to pass up on some of this good value in this game, in the Hawks-Bucks game, to wait for DeAndre Hunter and Bogdanovic news? I think that might end up being a mistake. And even if Hunter and Bogdanovic sit, some of these guys will be good plays. Maybe Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, but they're still not must plays to me. So I'm going to be low on this game. I think regardless on teams that I have, I'm not playing 150 like I said tonight, but on teams where I have flexibility, I'll circle back if these guys are ruled out and see if I can make any adjustments or upgrades. But I'm not building my teams tonight waiting on Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter news.
I mean, who don't you think the players in the Bucks Sixers game are better plays than those Hawks wings? Even if the two guys,
exactly. Yeah, that's that's I'd agree with that. Yeah.
And going into the slate, if we don't have that news, how many players in the Bucks and Sixers game, how deep do you have to go into that game before you get a Jazz player or a Hawk that would pass one of the players in the first game? You get what I'm saying? I think you could say maybe you think the best player in the slate is Shake Milton or Andre Drummond, and then you're going to list players and players and players. I think it's there's 10 guys in the Sixers Bucks game that are all better plays than anyone in the Jazz and Hawks game. That's how the Jazz and the Jazz and Hawks.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with what you're saying. So it's a small list, but we'll go through it. Donovan Mitchell and Trae Young, I think they make sense because I talked about it before. If you spend all the way up at guard, it's just going to get you different. We know the ceilings those guys can have. I mean, they're elite players. If Trae Young goes out for 60 tonight, no one will be shocked at all. They'll just be like, hey, listen, like it's Trae Young. He can easily have a good game. Is the second night of a back-to-back? I'm not saying I expect it, but it's something to look at. I think the best value play on the Bucks, or not on the Bucks, on the Jazz or Hawks right now without the news, I would say is Bogdanovic at 5.3K. I kind of talked with Spread a little bit on the Run Pure Bet show, and he kind of convinced me. I saw Bogdanovic popping on some teams, and he said the Hawks give up the most corner threes in the league that are just like completely open, uncontested. And the word for uncontested threes is like 6 feet or more for being open. And Bogdanovic is going to sit in that corner a lot for those 3-pointers, and so will Joe Ingles. But I definitely prefer rostering a Bogdanovic over an Ingles in this spot. So I think he's my favorite Jazz value play on the slate, or even in this game completely. And then I'd say you can make a case for Clint Capella on FanDuel specifically. If you're going to fade Andre Drummond, which I'm not saying you should, but if you want to fade him, Clint Capella is dirt cheap. If you look at the price tag over there, he is 6.3. I think it's either 6.4, 6.2, or 6.3. I can't remember the exact price, but the case to be made is when you pull up Clint Capella's game log, you might say, oh man, this is a tough matchup. You're an idiot for talking about Clint Capella against Rudy Gobert. But the key is they need Clint Capella in there to guard Rudy Gobert. If you look at all the games he's played this year, what game has he played the most minutes? Against Utah, he played 35 minutes in November. Again, I'm not saying that Clint Capella is going to have a massive game, but if you are going to fade a chalky Andre Drummond, I think doing it for a cheap Clint Capella at one of his season low prices where he should play the most minutes is the spot to do it if you're going to just get as much leverage as possible. DC, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like that call. I think if you're planning to fade Andre Drummond, I'm certainly going to do it on some lineups. It's best to have, kind of a plan on how that's going to work out. One way it could work out is, you get the out of, even if Andre Drummond, maybe he goes for 40 fantasy points. Well, Capella could beat that, right? And so you've got that out in your back pocket as well as the out of like Drummond just like completely busting. So I think that same logic could apply to Rudy Gobert. He's more expensive, 8,900, but he can easily go for 50 plus. He's done it, 3 or 4 times already this season. No reason he couldn't do it in this matchup. So I like Gobert a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I'm just not, 1, maybe 2 guys from this game on any lineups that I'm making.
Hoop, I know you don't love this game, but like, which ones will you play? Like, are you not playing any of them, or like, did we convince you on anything here that we talked about? Again, I'm not saying I love these guys, but I do think you can consider some of them. It is a 3-game slate.
Yeah, for sure. Just real quick, K. Felix Burner in chat, some good comments. He says Discord is a stay away for Allie. We're not going to tell Allie what to do here at Run Pure Sports. She has full reign to explore and figure out what's for her and what is not for her. But her getting in Discord could be a very dangerous proposition. That is for sure.
I like to think we have like a pretty well behaved Discord. There's not that many problems, but yeah.
It definitely see.
Hoop, if Allie's in Discord, that Discord jail might have a quick night. The first couple nights, there might be a lot of people in that jail cell together.
Yeah, you and Captain might have your hands full for sure. And then he goes, she would get 500 likes with only 400 watching. Oh, good stuff.
We have almost 500 watching, only 178. I don't know what you want to make the number, but this is gonna be the last time I say it. We're gonna go to the last game shortly, and then I'm not saying it anymore. So what do we got?
We have 490 watching. If we get to 500, we'll bring Allie on for the last 20 minutes. How about that?
That's fair. What about for the plays though, Hoop? What about?
We got to get. We need. What is it? Tuesday night. We got to get.
They don't care about those. They don't care about the plays anymore.
Yeah, no, the plays are done. Maybe we can scrap them. We can scrap the graphics. We don't need. 250. Just 250. 250 is a good number. Get us 250, and then we'll get the plays. And in terms of this game, the guys that I would consider, probably more the cheaper options. I do agree with your Clint Capella take. I think he's fine on FanDuel. It fits their scoring a little bit better with the blocks and whatnot. On the Jazz side, Bogdanovic would probably be my favorite for all the reasons you guys mentioned, and a cheap price tag, 5.3. He can get hot from 3, and that's obviously important on DraftKings. Maybe Conley. Conley's been playing pretty well. He's been over like 37 fantasy points in 3 straight games, playing decent amount of minutes. I mean, don't love it. And, I'm not playing like a ton of guys here. It's 2 of my least favorite teams for fantasy purposes.
All right, we can move on from that game. Let's go over to the next one. DC, let's talk Trailblazers and Clippers. 221 total, and we get a nice little break between the 9 o'clock game over to the 10 o'clock. This should be the TNT game. So this is the one I want to watch. If you told me, hey, I can only sit down and watch one game with no money even on the line, this would probably be the one I would want to watch because I think it'll be fun and competitive. They have a little bit of a mini rivalry, even though Pat Beverly is not there. But there's a lot of good options you can go to. I think Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, Paul George is a great pivot. Nick Batum, Zubac has seen a lot more run against a team like the Blazers because Nurkic, they have a lot of size. And we've already seen these 2 teams play twice. You got Terrence Mann off the bench, who's interesting. I think Luke Kennard is a great play. He's had 2 great games so far against a Blazers team that cannot defend the 3-point line. And on the opposite side, you got a way too cheap CJ McCollum at 7-2. Norm Powell's been great. Dame Lillard has been really lame. And then you got Nurkic, who's another decent option to go to. So this is a game that I think people are going to stack up a bit with some of these value plays in the earlier games. How are you handling this one?
Yeah, first off, I'll say I'm just not like Damian Lillard, man. I got to wait till the DK price tag has to go down. I don't think I've played him all year. Not playing him here. Like, I get it. It's still Damian Lillard. But, man, to me, at this point, you got to see it at least.
What do we think it is? Because it's clearly something. Like, I've watched a little bit, and I can't figure out exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the usage slightly down. CJ McCollum taking on a bigger role. And then it's just his shots not falling. I mean, he's shooting 35% from the field, 25% from 3. That's going to change, of course, right? Like, he's not going to keep shooting this poorly, but yeah, I just need to see him snap out of it personally, especially with CJ McCollum. I mean, it's like the same play to me, basically. And he's $2,000 cheaper on a slate with Giannis on it, with the expensive Drummond. I just can't justify, spending up that extra $2K for no reason other than to be a little bit different. But it's not even that different because people play Dame Lillard anyway. So I'm not going there. Paul George, I think, is the play you want on the Clippers side. But like you said, Kennard is fine. Terrence Mann. I mean, there's a Reggie Jackson. To me, this is the game that you kind of fill out the rest of your lineup, that any spots that, you didn't fill from the first game. You just kind of skip over, at least in my opinion, you kind of skip over the Atlanta and Utah game to some extent. You get to this one, and there's a bunch of good plays. Paul George has been insane. I've been talking about his just crazy usage rate, all things, rebounding, assists, driving to the basket, shots. I mean, 2 games ago against Minnesota, he shot 4 for 20 from the field, 0 for 7 from 3, and put up 48 fantasy points. Like, if that doesn't tell you how high this guy's ceiling is, I don't know what would. So he's a 60-plus fantasy point player. And, even if Giannis had a good game, Paul George could beat him. So I don't mind that pivot if you're not on Giannis. And then, CJ McCollum, going to be popular. But to me, just kind of an easy play at 7,200. I think you can kind of build around him. And then, you kind of fill in some of those value pieces depending on, what kind of savings you need. I mean, even a guy like Anthony Simons is getting 20-plus fantasy points per game most times out there. He's 3,800. So you can pivot off some of the early value. Maybe you pivot off of a George Hill to go to like a Simons, who I think will be, I would guess, less owned than George Hill. So plays like that. But, I'm kind of just filling in, whatever's left from that early game with this game for me.
All right, Hoop, let me go over to you. You mentioned CJ McCollum before, and I think CJ McCollum is a really, really good shooting guard option. I don't think he gets the ownership I guess you were thinking, and I think the reason I'm kind of under that impression is I believe that we're going to see a lot of guards in the Sixers game get owned. If Curry gets ruled out, and even if he's in, I still think you're going to see a lot of guards get rostered. I think McCollum is a really, really strong tournament option at that price and way too cheap. I also like some of these Clippers guards too. So break it all down for me. This is a great game to get exposure to, and I don't think you want to avoid this one.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think a lot of these guys in this game come in lower owned than people think. I mean, when you start building teams, it is very easy just to load up on that Bucks 76ers game. It's just very easy, and it's just like it's natural. Like when you start building your teams, you start clicking on these guys. well, you start running out of spots pretty soon. So I think, yeah, maybe McCollum is a little, I think he is probably the highest owned from this game, but it's probably lower than it should be. Or I'm even thinking, agree with like a lot of what DC said, like Powell, I really like. McCollum, I really like. Paul George, I think, is a really good player. I've been playing a lot of Paul George. You can also look at Zubac, who's been playing solid. Eric Bledsoe, the results have come down a little bit. He started out hot early on in the season, but still getting mid-20s in terms of minutes. Reggie Jackson. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, just playing maybe like 2 or 3 guys from that Bucks 76ers game, hoping there's some sort of blowout. Then you're sitting pretty going into this 10 o'clock game that's a 221 total, 3-point spread, 2 teams that don't play a ton of defense. And if this thing shoots out, stays close, you're going to absolutely print on the slate. So love the spot. I think there's 5 or 6 very viable guys for fantasy purposes here. Pretty good price tags for the most part. Obviously, Paul George is a little bit expensive, but outside of him, I mean, and if you're not playing Dame, which I'm not, everything else is mid-7s and below. So you can get a lot of different guys mixed in. Very good game here for fantasy, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a great game for fantasy. DCA, you talked about not liking Lillard. What do you do with him on FanDuel? That's a good conversation to have because FanDuel, he's cheap, man. I mean, point guard's not amazing, and you can always make great lineups. Like you have Lillard at 8.5. You obviously have Drew Holiday at 6.8 or Maxey's 6.6, which is kind of expensive, but Donovan Mitchell is only $200 more than Damian Lillard over on FanDuel. What's your thoughts on Dame over there?
Definitely a better play over there, but I mean, I still prefer sticking with a Maxey for a 2K savings. Kind of, that's kind of weird to say, right? Just $2,000 from Damian Lillard to Tyrese Maxey, but I was still lean the Maxey side there. Feel better just about his ability to reach value. Milton, I think, is a close call. If Seth Curry sits, I would prefer him still there. But yeah, for sure, you got to play 2 point guards and Dame a better play on FanDuel, partly because McCollum and his prices are so much closer, right? So maybe you play Dame on FanDuel and McCollum on DraftKings, but yeah, I still don't think he's some slam dunk at 8.5. I mean, he just hasn't really been getting the job done,
Hoop, anything else from this game? And one more thing I want to mention. Our chatter, K. Falik, said they just glossed over that Hawks game without talking about the best play. Our buddy K. Falik thinks that Lou Williams is his favorite play. I mean, any rebuttal there, Hoop, for Mr. K. Falik?
I mean, the guy hasn't played more than 12 minutes in the last 3 weeks. So no thanks. I mean, maybe he's got some inside info. Maybe the charts are saying otherwise, but he's just not even playing. He's not even on the court.
Charts saying anything for you, DC? We know you've kind of dabbled in possibly doing some charts, but anything?
Oh, I'll need further explanation from Mr. K. Falik on Lou Williams because he was not on my radar. He must have reason to think he's going to get more minutes this game, which I guess maybe I missed it, but I wasn't really projecting that myself.
Well, you won't have any charts tonight because we do not have the final countdown show today. There's no JSU. No Holden. You don't have Allie on there, so you will not be getting that show today, just so you know. So this is it for us. We'll obviously be in the Discord chat answering your questions. We'll be doing the core plays, the playbook. AP's got the heat map. They got it all. And Hoop, I don't got too much else to say. And I'm looking at the likes, and the people disappointed us.
We're out. Well, we got to stick to it. We said 250. We didn't get to 250. We'll be putting the plays in the Discord. Actually, I'm gonna start typing mine in right now.
Yep, we're going to put the plays in the Discord for the people. Again, there'll be no final countdown show today, but it'll be back tomorrow. Don't you worry about that. We got a 7:30 Eastern lock, so you got plenty of time to get your lineups all set up. But that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Mango and Hoop and DC, we will see you guys later.